Hello, everybody online. Thank you for joining us today. We're here in Toronto in Scarborough, and outside it's pouring rain, and I was afraid, is that going to keep people away? No, that won't keep Caps people away. And I thought, oh no, there's a FIFA game. No, Caps is more important than that. So thank you everybody for joining us today in Scarborough and online. It's great to have you here. We've got an interesting program coming. My name is Mike DeChacco, and we normally start off our meetings by asking, do we have any new members? So let me first address who's in the room, and then we'll see if there's anybody new online too. So do we have any new members here? Steve, you're not a new member, but it's been a while since you've been here. Do you want to just stand up and say hello?
Good seeing you, buddy. Good seeing you, Mike.
I think you're the only one doesn't know me here.
Maybe. It was a pleasure getting to know you. Okay, anybody else? No?
Yeah, good seeing you, buddy. Good seeing you, Mike.
Do we have anybody online who's joining us for the first time?
Yes. Yes.
That's me
Yeah,
too.
Mike.
How you doing, Richard?
Not bad, you?
Good. I see.
My name's David.
David.
I'm from South Florida.
Wow. What's the weather like there?
You don't want to know.
Okay, we don't want to know. Is this your first time joining us?
Yes, it is. And I'm going to have to take a brief hiatus, and I got to cut off at 2:30
Okay.
because I start work at 3. Fortunately, I work at home. So, but
Okay.
I'm so excited to do this. This is my first ever attendance at any kind of meeting. I've been a member of the Antique Phonograph Society for many years, but I don't ever see that they're offering online meetings like this. So I'm looking forward to joining you every month, although briefly. I've been an avid collector for many decades at this point.
Tell us a bit about what you collect.
Oh, don't you think you should ask me what I don't collect?
Okay, what don't you collect?
Okay, what I
Tell us a
collect
bit about what
is,
you like.
I started with Edison phonographs. I have every model from the Triumph on down.
Wow.
Some of them I have 2 or 3. I have an Edison 2-clip standard. I have I'm in the process of rebuilding a home suitcase machine. I'm almost done. I got the base, I got the top plate screws to put in, and a belt. In addition, I also have 3 diamond disc machines.
Wow.
I have a B80, I have a Chippendale, and I have a William and Mary long play, which is possibly the pride of my collection. I've also started to go crazy with Columbia because actually I prefer the Columbia phonographs. I have a Busy Bee Columbia cylinder machines. I also have 2 BKs, one of which is going to be sold, and I have a BE, BF, and an AK first type disc machine. I'm working on getting another, but I need to finish the AK first because what I got was a Frankenphone. But that only has to do with the reproducer. So if anyone out there has an AK first type, that's the one with the wooden arm, I would really appreciate pictures of the tone arm, the reproducer, so that I can, because I got to unsolder the reproducer from the tone arm. But other than that,
we have a classified section too and a notices section on our website, and you're also able to post things there if you're looking for parts or whatever, so that'd probably be the best place to put it. But anyway, I wanted to thank you for joining us today. It's great to have you with us. Hope you like what we were going to present. Anybody else who's new to the meeting? Anyone online?
I have one quick question.
Shoot.
I got a notice that this meeting is being recorded. How do I pick it up after the fact?
Would you like to say something, Mark?
Yeah. What I do, I can't see. Okay. What I usually do is a week or 2 after we have the meeting, I'll get the video off our Zoom file online. I'll edit out the beginning and end, shorten it a little bit, and then I post it on our YouTube channel, the CAPS YouTube channel. So if you go there, you'll find all the previous meetings.
Thank you.
The last meeting from October is already up there. I looked at it.
Well, I'll join you in past tense.
Again, thank you for joining us today. So does anyone have any announcements they'd like to make? We'll start with the room first. Any general announcements related to the hobby? No? Oh, Blaine?
I have a box of free records over here, so at the lunch break, just go over and grab some free records. The
And
other
thank you
thing
for
I
bringing
wanted to
them.
mention is that one of the items on the auction table there, they're left over from the Dove Platte estate. And some of the other items are left over from the Miller auction that occurred last summer. Ethan called me, I went up. Anything that was good went to Ethan's auction, and the stuff that was left over is going to be sold here.
Great, thank you.
And also, I have a business account for mailing, so if anybody out there buys something, I will mail it for just the expense of mailing.
Excellent, thank you.
Give us an update on Stenson's.
On Stanton.
Oh, God.
So the
Got
question-
about a foot of snow the first day,
Okay,
and then the last day, which was Saturday, the weather reports were telling everybody to stay home, don't go out, stay off the roads. So most people left, and all the public, which shows up on Saturday, didn't come. So there were incredible bargains on
Whoa.
Saturday. The next auctions for Stanton's will be May 4th and 5th, right around the 1st of May. So
excellent,
it's
thank
always
you.
exciting, fun.
And we'll be doing an auction of everything on the table here in the second half of our show. And I'm sure we can talk a bit more about some of the items that you brought here.
Sure, ask any questions.
Great, thank you. Okay, does anyone on Zoom have announcements they'd like to make? No, okay, you don't have to. We'll just give you the opportunity if you want to. Okay, and,
I do have one.
okay, go ahead.
I just want to let you know I renewed my membership for one more year, so I'll be with you guys another year.
Oh, that's nice. Thanks, Richard.
You're welcome.
I'd like to point out Richard collects 16 RPM records and he's looking for one elusive disc. But you posted in the notices what you're looking for, and I'm sure the day's going to come when you get it.
We'll see, Mike. Hopefully, yes.
Thanks again, Richard.
You're welcome.
So we're actually starting a new segment with this meeting, and Don Colvin is going to roll it out for us, and it's called Just Saying. So Don's on the screen here. He's joining us via Zoom. And what it was in the meeting announcement too. Don's going to throw a topic out, and the purpose of doing so is to stimulate discussion among people. And I've seen some of the topics that Don's come up with, and they really are thought-provoking. So Don, why don't you introduce yourself, and you can start off just saying.
Okay, Don here from Toronto, and unfortunately I can't get to the meeting because I teach Sunday mornings until 1. So I get my students out and onto the laptop as soon as I can to be here with you. So just to give you a bit of an idea, what I'm looking for this to do is to get a discussion going, get to know a little bit more about the members. And it really is fascinating. The whole idea of recorded sound and all the effects, like the invention, what's in fashion, the economy, everything makes a difference and everything changes. The machines that are sold and how they're sold, things like that. Of course, this is huge, huge subject matter. So I was trying to get it into little segments. And while I was doing it, because I always have music or something on in the back, I heard that Tina Turner is re-releasing an album on vinyl, which I thought, okay, that's really interesting because the entertainment business does not lose money. Tina Turner is still a big name. So if they're re-releasing an album on vinyl, it means that there are sales. So I just kept going along on that thought. I thought, okay, what would be the most ridiculous example of that? I thought, okay, South Pacific original cast on 2-minute cylinders. So I went through by South Pacific and I was really rigid. The minute a song even went over the 2-minute mark by a few seconds, it had to be 2 cylinders. So I thought, okay, this is like outrageous crazy. And it is kind of, because the South Pacific original cast would be 28 2-minute cylinders. And I'm thinking about it a little bit further. I'm going, wait a second, maybe this isn't so crazy. If I saw South Pacific original cast, 28 2-minute cylinders on YouTube or on Amazon, I would be hitting the buy it now button. And not only would I buy it, I would get it, I would play it, and I would love it. So maybe it's not wildly crazy. It could be that it's fashionable, and there are sounds like Broadway musicals where there's a band instead of an orchestra that I think actually benefit in sound being played through a horn as opposed to electrically reproduced. Just a footnote to this sort of thing. Yesterday, I was trying to explain to a 20-year-old what a Ringer washing machine was like. And that's almost impossible because of what it is. So I looked it up on Google, and on Amazon, you can buy hand wringers for your laundry. Not only one, and it's not a repro, these are new products, and you have a selection of different ones you can buy. So I'm kind of thinking maybe cylinders could make a comeback. Maybe there's a market for all these Broadway shows to be re-released or original material. Just another little footnote to that. The Canadian Railroad trilogy, Gordon Lightfoot's song, which I absolutely love, I have always thought that really needs to be an acoustic 78 recording. That would be just fabulous to have. Anyways, that's it. What do you think? Like, is this like a multi-million-dollar business that I'm missing by not starting up making original cylinders to sell again? I don't know. It's possible. Go ahead. Let me know how crazy or not crazy it is.
So would anybody like to respond to that idea? Are you willing to buy 2-minute cylinders nowadays?
Well, I searched for the song Farewell to Nova Scotia. I was hoping that was on cylinder, because the original song was written in the 1790s. Lyrics were put into the song at the end of the First World War. So I crossed my fingers, I went to the cylinder archives, it wasn't there. But it's a wonderful song, and it just reeks cylinder. This has to be put on a cylinder. But are you familiar? Is everyone familiar with that song? So Farewell to Nova Scotia.
Can you sing it?
Old.
Will you sing it?
Oh, yeah. No, you're the singer.
Would anybody else like to join in on the conversation?
I will. I've seen, this is Tom here in Saskatoon. I've seen various, YouTube videos of people doing cylinder recordings live and there are people like, who's that fellow? I think he's from Philadelphia as well, who makes cylinders and cuts a lot of cylinders and that. And my wish is that somebody starts making shellac 78s or 78s you can play on a gramophone, because there are 78 RPM vinyl, the odd one being issued, but you can't play that on a gramophone. It'd be the same as trying to play an LP. But I would dearly love to see that, because there's a lot of, I don't know, I just like, especially if they were like reproductions of the acoustic records or whatever.
Or even new ones, perhaps. Yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, I've seen the videos of people, because this interests me a lot, recording their own cylinders, but they're done kind of as a hobby and sort of like, wow, this is fascinating that it works. I'm thinking, what if you actually started, like you were saying, Tom, with the shellac 78s? What if you actually, there was a business recording Lady Gaga songs on cylinder? Maybe there's a market, and that would be a marketable machine, and we can fix any of the problems that cylinder machines had, like the weight and that sort of thing being important. Well, we have technology that would fix that. Just interesting if there would be a market. Like I say, you can sell a lot of stuff.
A friend of mine, a lot of Dominic DiBernardo, He needs a cylinder for one of his machines, and it goes with, there's some slides in it, so it has to be a specific cylinder that we haven't been able to locate. So I got a recording of the song that he needs on his cylinder, and Mike DeCecco actually cleaned it up for me. It came out really good.
Goodbye, sis.
Goodbye, sis. So I'm in contact with a company in England that makes the molds and the cylinders. So what he said was, I think it was for 200 pounds, he will make the mold and make 2 cylinders. And then every cylinder after that is like 10 or 20 pounds or something like that. So it can be done. There's someone doing it right now, and he does a lot of custom work. So I'm in the process of able to do that. So if you think there's a market for Lady Gaga, you can just for 200 pounds, you can sort of start making them and see how far that goes.
You know what? I'm gonna call her as soon as the meeting's over.
Now, would it depend on the instrumentation though? Because we know with cylinders, when they first started recording them, they found that acoustic recording didn't pick up strings, for example, but it picked up brass very well. It picked up voices. So, and I'm sure it's more detailed than that, but we know that some things record better than others. So if you acoustically recorded a Lady Gaga song, I wonder how much of the music behind her voice you would actually get.
I've heard recordings where, as someone said, people recorded it live, like a new cylinder, and the quality's pretty good. Like they are able to get a lot of it. I think it was getting it loud enough and being able to reproduce it on other cylinders was the problem, but you can actually capture it and make a pretty good recording now. Actually, I should mention, I was looking to ship some vinyl records, so I needed some boxes, and I looked up on the internet, and there was someone in Toronto selling boxes, a company. So I went over to buy the boxes, and while I was buying them, I looked sort of at this big door in there, and there looked like these banks of those old, you know, those old computers with the 2 things on it. It looked like he had banks of them, and there were like all these people working on them, and I was like, what is all that stuff? He says, oh, that's our cassette tape machines. He says that's a reel of like 100 copies of a cassette, like an album, someone's album, and it'll feed it through the machine into a cassette, spits out the cassette, and it'll keep doing that. And I said, is there a market for that? And he said, oh my God, I can't buy enough of these machines and keep them going. I'm running basically 24 hours a day, making cassette tapes. He says, the vinyl stuff, he said, that sells, but cassette tapes are way bigger. I had no idea. And he says, I got these machines going all the time, and every time I can get one, I buy a new one.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was in Toronto.
Medium, though.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy.
You know the resurgence of the interest in Kate Bush because of the song.
Oh yeah.
Running Up That Hill. I think it was from the album Hounds of Love. The cassette recently sold online for $600. The original cassette. So somebody wants them.
Yeah, there's apparently it's a booming thing.
But Mark, with the cylinder that you're making, I know when I clean up the file, so I would assume they're going to cut the disc electrically.
Yeah, it's not like they used to where they dub it or anything like that. They take an audio, like a wave file, and like a digital file and burn it that way. Yeah. So the quality should be exceptional.
Awesome. Great discussion, Don. Is there anything else you'd like to add about it?
No, I'm just looking for new musicals on Amazon. To the cylinder.
I like the idea of Gordon Lightfoot on cylinder. I think it would sound good.
But I don't know anybody doing 78s.
No, nobody does 78s.
So, will we need a copyright?
Yeah, the copyright.
No, it depends. They changed that recently. So a lot of songs are now no longer copyrighted.
50 years
They're public
or
domain after like 50 years, with exceptions, like popular music, Beatles and stuff like that. You can't.
Some song I put on YouTube that I get a message saying it's copyright. Yeah.
Yes, I've gotten that a lot. Yeah, and what happens is they leave the video on, but the money generated from the commercial goes to the copyright owner.
They've been songs that are over 50 years old. They get re-copyrighted.
Yeah, I don't know how it works. There was an article in Arsk, I think, or something, that said that there was a change recently and a whole bunch of songs have entered public domain, but maybe there's some limits to how that works.
Yeah.
But even if they're not in public domain, it just means that you have to pay to record them. But if this is big business,
oh,
Yeah.
Also, I think some of those copyright claims on YouTube are false. Because I have one video on YouTube. It's like a grand prize record, so made before, it was like a 1909 record. And it's like a Verdi opera or something. And there's a copyright claim on it. And you think there can't be anybody who owns the copyright to that now. But anyway, that's sorry to too much time.
Great. Okay, well, thanks, Tom, for your comments. And Don, thank you for bringing up Just Saying, and we'll look forward to the next one that you do.
Okay.
So we're going to move on now to our presentation.
My pleasure.
Thank you again, Don. So I'd like to introduce Steve O'Neill. And as if you missed the last meeting, Steve has agreed to take the position of our new program convener. And his first shot at it is going to be this meeting.
Good.
So I'll let you introduce
Well,
what we're going to cover and our guest.
Good. My name is Steve and I am your new presentation convener. I hopefully I can make this through without my voice completely breaking. So our first topic is gramophone ephemera. So we all have gramophones and records, but I thought that we'd start talking about things beyond the actual item themselves and look at the world. As archaeologists say, sometimes you have to look beyond what was obvious, and you sometimes, if you want to understand a people, you have to look at not necessarily what they kept, but also what they threw away. Something that was intended to be temporary is now a lot more interesting. So you want to show my the first picture?
Okay, give me a second here.
And so I'm going to show you, just to start off.
This one?
Yeah, it's the only one there.
Okay, hold on.
So yeah, you just leave it like that. So here we have a piece of ephemera. It's obviously it's a piece of advertising for the new at that time credenza, Victor Credenza. You can see that on the left side. And what's telling about this is that it's not just trying to sell you a very expensive gramophone, but it tells you about the kind of people who would buy that kind of machine. It was Victor's top of the line. And it was said that if you had one of these in your living room, you probably had a Rolls Royce or a Duesenberg in the driveway, and which is true. That machine itself started off at about $240, and it was still selling in the 1930s. So even during the Depression, they were able to charge twice that amount. So you can definitely see that this young couple probably has a Duesenberg in the driveway. Like I said, it is selling the image and not necessarily the gramophone, because if you look at the gramophone, it's actually out of proportion. Yeah, because these machines are very tall. So if that lady, for example, were to stand up, you could imagine her, she's probably 7 feet tall. Because so we can obviously see that she has a very, very opulent lifestyle, the perfectly manicured gardens outside. So you can look at the gramophone itself, but what does it tell you? No, you have to look at the ephemera to really give you the whole story. And luckily, we have other people to talk about that as well. Who's next? Yeah, Tom Ray. Are you ready to talk about your?
Yeah, sure, I am. That's fine.
Promote his video.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got a video? Okay, hold
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, so actually, when each different picture comes up, just pause it, because they come pretty close. So when you hit play again, it'll.
Yeah, that's.
Do you want to play the video first, though?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
no.
well, the video
I
is-
see what you're saying,
yeah, there's no
right,
sound for the video. I'll just
tell us to pause.
I'll
Okay,
just
hold on,
blab
give me a
over it.
second here to
Yeah.
do this here. Get out of here.
There we go. Yeah. So if you just pause it now. Yeah. So yeah, you better pause it there if you can. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Good. Yeah. So I was looking at it, buying some records one day, and I found a guy had a 1918 Victor Records catalog, and he wouldn't sell it to me, but that made me go online and look for some more. So I've bought 4 so far, and they're just very interesting. I probably bought the 16 one first. They were all off eBay. And then the July 1913 one, well, we'll get to it in a second. You know, they're there, yeah. So it's, we'll see there. Yeah, you can try the next slide now. Yeah, so they're relatively thick. I had thought they're about 300 or 400 pages long each. So there's a lot of stuff in them. So yeah, okay, next slide or picture. Yeah, this one, you could pause that. I bought this from a bookseller in Nelson, BC. So it had been there since 1913, which, and I bought it a couple of years ago maybe. So that was, it was there for 109 years. And I paid way too much for it, but it was pre-World War I and Canadian and Berliner one. So I just thought I'd just buy it, but I just, and it's maybe in the best condition of all the ones I own perhaps too, even being the oldest. Okay, next slide. So I'm gonna go through these by year. Yeah, you can just let that continue. Yeah, and then so here, so it's interesting there. It says a catalog without index pages, and this is the first year of their new catalog style, and it says a catalog without index or page numbers, because everything's just alphabetical, so you don't need page numbers. But this book does have page numbers. It's interesting that I don't know if you'll see the bottom of any of the pictures, but it says it doesn't, but it does. But after that, they don't have page numbers. So, and it gives you how things are organized and all that stuff. It makes me think that it would be nice if I could organize my own record collection as well. But okay, next one. Should go soon. Oh yeah, and being a Canadian one as well, it has, there's a couple of pages here of the French Canadian stuff that you wouldn't get probably on the American Victor catalog. So you could play through that. More of the same. French. Okay, now stop it here. The prices there, I highlighted these. For the Sextet from Lucia, Act 2, they have 2 versions of it. Caruso is in both of them, and I own one of them, but it was $8 in 1913. I did a little online search, which changes every day with the markets, but $1 in 1913 was the equivalent of $30 now. So that was a $240 record. It just boggles the mind. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that, but it made me think about why gramophones, the fancier ones, had locks on them. Can anybody hear me? I can't hear anybody else.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so it's, and that would have been Canadian dollars, but I don't know what the exchange rate was at the time, but it was never that far off. So it just seems that, yes?
Wouldn't that be a one-sided record also?
Pardon me?
Would that be a one-sided record?
Yeah, I think it was, yes. Yeah. Because I have a couple of versions of it, but I think it's a newer one, and the flip side is the quartet from Barbara of Seville, is it? Or anyway, there's a quartet on the other side, which is also quite an expensive record. But yeah, so all these ones are very expensive, $250, $350. So yeah, a lot of money. Okay, that's right. Next slide. Picture. I say slide, but it's not a slide. Yeah, and this one here, you know, they've just to publish a book about this. Yeah, just so this is more of the kind of thing that they're advertising. So this in itself would be more ephemera if anybody has one lying around. So yeah. And it's interesting too, in 1913, like there was ragtime and things starting, of course, but they really seem to focus a lot on this sort of, you know, the serious side of recording and music. So, okay, next one. Oh yeah, this one, Mike DeCecco might want to speak about this. There's a couple pictures here of the puzzle record, which the only experience of that is I have a Monty Python comedy LP, that one side of it is a puzzle record. There's 2 sets of grooves. But Mike DeCecco, I think you said you have a collection of these.
So Tom, I was reading this book when you sent the slides to me in advance, and I do have a copy of this record, which actually I picked up at a CAPS meeting. And it's really neat, and that wherever you place the stylus, it depends which song you're going to hear. So
Yeah.
there's actually 3 in there. And the description they have in the book would have been more effective if each song was a different color. So you can see how they appear to be all in the same direction, but they're really intertwined amongst each other.
Yeah, yeah.
And Mark, I believe you're a puzzle record expert too. I know there's the Berliner, the 7-inch puzzle record. That was the first one that was made.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
4.
Were there 4 that were made? Oh, wow.
Dan Quinn.
yeah, try the next slide too. I think there's more puzzle record on the next picture.
We thought in the future of maybe doing puzzle records as a subject.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah. Oh yeah, stuff here. Yeah, this one. Yeah, so there's 4 selections on each side.
Okay.
So it has to be a 12-inch, otherwise they'd be very short. So yeah, and it's just the luck of starting it. I guess you just have to start it and hope you get the right one, right? Because when I very first, this is many years ago, back in the 70s, when I first played my Monty Python LP, I thought one side was a bit short. And then the next time I played the record, it was totally different. And I thought, well, what the heck? You know, I didn't, because there's nothing on there about it being a puzzle record. Yeah. So this record that we're seeing here is essentially like a 4-start worm gear on your, you know, a 4-start screw or bolt or something. Yeah.
And if you think about it too, the orchestra would have to play all 4 songs perfectly, because if they screwed up one recording, that's the end of the puzzle record, right?
That's right. In 1913, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would never have thought of that.
Oh, dear.
No pressure.
To interject, this is David Hanser. I have 2 Victor orthophonic electric records that are both puzzle records, and I got to tell you, it's not easy to get to all the songs. I have had to try numerous times to get to song 2 and 3, and that goes for all 4 sides. So the first time I heard one, I looked at the label and said, "Puzzle? What's puzzle?" I found out.
And I suspect, and maybe you would know, David, the first few grooves of the puzzle records might be kind of chewed up from people starting.
Actually, they weren't.
Oh, okay.
I managed to get both of these puzzle records that I got were near mint. So I got lucky. That's all I could say there.
Okay, next one. Oh yeah, this one. This is an interesting thing that, again, it's just the things you learn by reading all this ephemera stuff. I didn't realize that this thing they're talking about, the moto proprio, about the turn of the century, the previous century and just before, late 1800s, they had started performing like sacred music or sacred songs to the melodies of popular operas. So the what's his name, Pius X here, put a stop to that, and they went back to plain song or Gregorian chant or something like that. And I mean, I can sort of see it. I don't know, it's whatever. But I had no idea that they had done that for a while.
I thought that was quite interesting to read, that the Pope had made a decree banning all women to sing in the choir.
Yes.
And so, but Victor was able to get in there before the ban. So what you hear on those records they're advertising is actually the full chorus, including women and including a band. And after that, they put a moratorium on that. And even to this day, the Sistine Choir does not have any female singers. So if you want to hear the Sistine Choir as really as it should, as music was written for it, you have to go back and get those records.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wonder if this is recorded, this stuff is recorded by that Geisberg fellow who traveled around the world recording stuff for Victor. Anyway, okay, next one. That was just a little. Oh yeah, so yeah, 1916. Because I do like acoustic recordings. So if I ever get any more of these books, they'll be pre-1925, I would think. But yeah, so you can continue with this one. And this is the only one that's sort of all American that I have. So I suspect if it were oh yeah, this Book of the Opera, I've seen that advertised recently at a used bookseller. I might order it, you'll see, just to have it. Yeah, so in this catalog, I suspect the Canadian one would have more of the like World War I sort of songs, whereas this one doesn't have so many because the US wasn't in the war yet. So, okay, next. Oh yeah, and these, I don't know how I sent the picture cut off, but it's Irene Castle and what the heck is her name? Vernon and Irene Castle. So this is just to sort of advertise the dance music, but they were a famous dance couple and they had dance troupes and everything. And incidentally, Louise Brooks, who used to dance with them, and she went on to be a famous silent movie actress. And she only died in like 1989 or something like that, or even maybe more recently than that. But yeah, I just sort of thought, when I saw them there, I thought, oh, that's who Louise Brooks used to dance with. So, okay, next one. Oh yeah, so there's, yeah, castle dances. And in this one and the next one as well, you could just let it run, like lame duck waltz, hesitation or Boston jigs, 1 steps, half and half, tango and maxi, 3 steps, 2 steps, Tom Tuckers. Like there's so many dances that, I don't know, if you were a young person in those days, did you have to learn all of these to be cool on the dance floor? Is that, I had no idea. And I don't even know if I would notice, if I was listening to a 3-step or a 2-step, would I even know, record, would I even notice a change in the thing? I'm not sure. Does anybody know about these things?
Guess not.
Okay.
Well, the 3-step would be a waltz, wouldn't it? A 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
No, because they had waltzes as well. Yeah. So I'm not sure.
Oh.
If you were debuting, yes, you would have to know these dances.
I guess, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and yeah, so, and this is just some of the stuff. This Fernando de Lucia, I added it in there because I just sort of discovered him. I don't know how I missed him before, but anyway, very, very nice bel canto style singer. Sort of, I think he was around, he'd be older than Caruso was. Yeah. Okay, the next one. Oh yeah, here we are. And here's the same sextet by Caruso, both of the sextets in 1916, US dollars, $7, which is, I think is, like just under $200, $196 or something, which still just is crazy. Like, how did people do it? And even the regular records that were like 90 cents or $1, that would have been $25. You couldn't buy many of those if you were just a regular wage earner kind of person. You couldn't have got many of those. And yet there seem to be so many gramophones around still for sale. Like, so a lot of people owned them. So I don't know, somehow it just doesn't seem to balance out that, that they could have been the records could have been that kind of money, unless there were used record stores there. I don't know if anybody knows about that. That would have been a good idea, actually, to start a used record shop. So, okay, next one. Oh yeah, so yeah, and the Victor records have a pink section that is for the Red Seal records or for the classical sort of stuff. So they have them there. So, and you see, even at the regular price, $1.50, $2 or $3, that's still a lot of money. That's just, you know, the $3 records are like $60 records or something. It's crazy. And I suppose, okay, go to the next one. There must have been a certain, I guess, prestige or hierarchy. If you were a performer and your record sold for $3 and somebody else was just sold for $1.50, that would make you up there. Although I was thinking with the sextet from Lucia, I don't know how they paid their royalties, but maybe part of the price is they had to pay 6 operatic singers to sing the sextet. So maybe it just cost them that much more to produce it as well. So, because I think back then people just got a one-time recording fee and then not royalties for sales. Well, yeah, these things here, they have about how to look after the machine and testing it. And they're also mentioning tungstone needles here, which were a thing. I have some tungstone needles, and I don't know, I'm not really pleased with them. I don't know, it's just something, or maybe it just sort of makes me feel like I still feel like I can't be using it over and over again, and I just don't have a good feeling when I try to use them. So. Okay, next one. They also mentioned in one of these books about how the speed could be knocked out of kilter when the maid dusts your gramophone. So that speaks to what Steve was saying before about the kind of people who own gramophones. Oh yeah, pronunciations. It has David there and that. Anyway, yeah, so the sort of things that they put in the books. Yeah, so 1930, and you can just let that run. I got this from either eBay or a used bookseller, and it is from, so it's a sort of a Canadian one, because it's from St. John's, Nova Scotia, but before St. John's joined Confederation. So Water Street. And this is my newest book. So we can run it now. I haven't gone to Street View to look at Water Street or done any research. Well, yeah, and so now they're talking about electrical machines and such here. There's more of that when we get to the Brunswick catalog as well. Okay, next. Oh yeah, and this is for the automatic, because a meeting or two ago, we saw an automatic record changer gramophone being played. And this would be, you know, what they're talking about and the way the records were arranged in sets and that. So yeah, I always thought those things looked like they were too hard on records.
Yeah, Tom, I was going to bring this up after, but regarding the price of records, what really surprises me is things like the record changers and how they were stored. You would think if it was a $250 record, you would have it in a really nice protected case.
Yeah.
And you certainly wouldn't have one of these record changers that's comparable to a baseball bat whacking it off the turntable. Mm-hmm. And I'm just surprised that they weren't held. I can understand somebody buying them and having them as a prestige item, but wouldn't you think they would be in gold folders or something, or extremely well looked after? Mm-hmm. That surprises me.
Well, one of the reasons that so many of these records have survived, and indeed a lot of them look like they have never been played, and that's because they were never played. They were, as you said, kept a lot as prestige items. Oh, look, I have the latest Tetrazzini record, and they were brought out once in a while to show people so that they were impressed. But yeah, for the most part, these expensive records were just simply not played.
Yeah, and certainly when the classical music and operatic stuff I buy generally is in better shape than the popular music, probably because it just didn't get played as much, or maybe the people were more fastidious or something like that. So yeah, well, yeah, so now the sextet from Lucia, where is it? Yeah, there we are, third from the top. It's $3.50, which was, now what was that? I think that was like a $60-some record in 1930, or $61 record. I wrote it down. Yeah, $61-ish in 1930. So still quite expensive. Just because, especially for me, like I'm lucky here. I was just emailing Matthew Davidson where he's not having luck finding a lot of records there in Halifax, and I've been lucky here. Like, you know, on average I pay less than $1 a record for all I own. So the thousands of records that I bought, it doesn't cost me much out here. Somehow, I don't know why we have the records and not as many gramophones.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, next slide. Unless somebody wants to say something.
Yeah, I did. This is David again.
Oh, hi.
You know, the machines that we called record changers, which were more like jukeboxes for the home, they were fabulously expensive and most people couldn't afford them. Many of them were changed into coin-ops so that they could be used in public places and the owners could recoup their money that way. But if you are ever down Dallas way, you can go to the Old Time Music Museum, which has possibly, from what I've understood, the largest collection of phonographs and the rarest of them in the country, in the United States, excuse me. And you can see at least 5 or 6 different record changer machines from the very beginning, and which I don't know if you've ever heard of Rick down there, but he told me that the worst part about them was maintaining the hoses and the air pressure because they were constantly breaking and falling off. And it was a fascinating day that I spent learning that stuff. All done.
Yeah.
What was the name of that again, David? The name
Well,
of the museum?
look up Rick Wilkins. You'll find him pretty much everywhere on phonograph sites. I think it's the Old Time Music Museum in Duncanville, Texas. And what I will do is look it up, give you a point to their link to their website and the address of the place, etc. It is going to be only by appointment. You cannot just go there.
Oh,
Just
okay.
so that you should know. But I will put that on the Facebook page.
Great, thank you.
All right, so this is the last one of the I said it for is on 1927. I think Brunswick catalog. Okay, play. Yeah, and this is Canadian. I mean, Brunswick is an American company, of course, but this is the Canadian sort of printing of this catalog. So it'd be stuff that was offered in Canada. Okay. Well, yeah, and so now, again, we're speaking of electrical recordings. This is another one speaking of, they called it the light ray electrical recording method. And so there's, you know, all of this stuff. Makes me wonder too, as technology was changing so quickly, I wonder if people held off buying a new machine thinking that it might be outdated really quickly. There's a period in the mid 70s to the early 80s where if you raced motocross, which I did, you pretty well had to buy a new bike every year. Technology was changing so quickly. Whereas now you could race an 8-year-old bike and be competitive, and you know, at an amateur local level. So anyway, next slide. Oh yeah, and there's speed stuff here. Oh yeah, which caught my eye. It says the correct speed for a Brunswick is 80 RPM. I had no idea. Did anybody else know that, or was I the only clueless one? So
I've got some, sorry, Tom, I've got some Brunswick records and they all say 80 RPM on them, but they're from the 1920s. What year is this?
this is 27.
27, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe I just didn't notice. I just wasn't observant enough on my.
I didn't notice until recently, actually.
Yeah. Okay, here we go next. Oh yeah, and there's even more technical stuff. I think I've actually seen this on like the Talking Machine forum. Somebody has printed this about how many, you know, the mechanical recording, 128 to 2000 cycles per second versus in the reproduction and the electrical and that. So supposedly, and of course, you know, like electrically recorded records played on a credenza, I mean, they really do sound, you get more stuff on them than you do on the old acoustic ones. Although I still really love the sound of, you know, trumpets and tubas and things on the acoustic records. Okay, next one. Oh yeah, so and of course radio coming in, so there's, you know, more promotion of their own things. I don't own any Brunswick machines at all. So, and yeah, and lots more dance records getting into this period compared to the classical stuff. You could just let that run. Yeah, and I like this too because like everything is to get. It has Sally's, you know, the popular stuff and dance stuff right above the operatic stuff, so it's just all alphabetical. So, Yodel and Bill just above Salome by Strauss. So, and then list of artists. I don't think anyone had anywhere near the number of artists as Victor, I suspect. Oh yeah, and then the Brunswick catalogs, the pink pages were yellow. So yeah, that's, okay, you could just continue that. And then, yeah, I think that's, yeah, so that's the back of that one. And then that's the end of my presentation there. I hope it wasn't too boring.
Excellent, thank you.
I think it was fascinating. Why would you say that?
Okay, well, I'm glad everybody else.
Yeah, there was a lot of extra information in there. I think we all learned something in there.
Tom,
Absolutely.
Tom,
Yeah.
that was a great presentation. And you know what it would make? A great article. And as I mentioned to the people that were here last time, we are really short on articles.
Yeah.
Starting December 1st, I'm starting the next issue and I don't have enough to fill it at this point. So we need articles. Tom, even if you did something on the first booklet you showed, the 1913 one, and elaborate on some of the things you elaborated on in your presentation, that would make an excellent article because there's lots of pictures and stuff. Okay, but anybody want to write an article, this is the time. We really need stuff on anything. Stuff in your collection that one-off that you want to talk about. Okay, but thanks, Tom. It was really great.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tom, for that. Up next, we have Mike Bryant. You'd like to talk to us about your talking books.
Talking. Yes, thank you, Steve. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, this session was on ephemera, and I guess you might say that records themselves are really not ephemera, they're records, but I thought in this particular case they're so strange and odd that they would go into the ephemera category. So I'm going to talk about talking book records, and I don't know if everybody's heard of these, but I'll show you some. But first of all, let's just talk about collecting. We all start with one of something, don't we? We get attracted to something. We may see it at somebody's home or in a museum or an antique show or something, and we say, I like that, I'm going to buy that. And we buy that one item. But of course, that then it puts up our antenna so that we start just keeping our eyes open for another one. And of course, once you see that second one and you buy that second one, then you're hooked. You are now a collector. So that's what happened to me with talking book records. I think it was at phonograph shows, Mark, you know, the ones we've been to in the States, where I would see one or two of these records, tended to always be the same ones. And eventually I decided to buy one. And of course, as I say, that did it. So let me give you a little bit about can they see that?
Yeah, hold on.
Great, thank you. So Victor Hugo Emerson was a bit of a character by the sound of it. I'll say some more about him later. We'll have a look at the records first, but during just 2 years, he produced this small range of records. I think there are 27, but there may be more, but there are 27 known records. And they were in 4-inch, like a floppy disk, but attached to a piece of cardboard. So we're going to see some on the slides in a minute, but for those at home, they can see like this. So you have a 4-inch record, and it's on a card with the words of the song on the back. And these were made in New York, but they were also distributed in Toronto. And I can't be quite sure whether they were actually made in Toronto. There's one or two of the records give the impression that they might have been, but I'm not so sure. I suspect they were only ever made in the States. So the whole piece, the record and the cardboard, would be put on the turntable, and the whole thing would spin. So that's the way you would play your record. So not working now.
Okay, let me just try and plug it in again here.
I'll turn off and turn on again. That's it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So there's an example of one of the very popular ones. If anybody ever collects these themselves and have seen these, what would you say is unusual about that particular example of this of the Mockingbird? Well, I'll tell you, it has its beak intact. So as you can imagine, these records are very easily damaged. And this is a very common one. And it's very, very hard to find one with a complete intact beak, because they just get knocked and the edges get broken. So, you know, collectors are really looking for the best condition ones and the ones that haven't been taped up. Now, we can see on this one that it refers to the Talking Book Corporation in New York, and also the Talking Book Company Limited in Toronto. In fact, almost every record seems to have a slightly different description on the back. They're not really very consistent. But here's some more examples. So this is called the Dancing Girl, and I don't know how well you can see the detail on this, but one of them is the Toronto version, and the other one is the New York version. You know, they just changed the words slightly on each one. In fact, even the addresses, the American address was 1 West 34th Street, New York City, and other times it's 1 West 34th Street at 5th Avenue, New York City. And other times it's 358 5th Avenue, New York, which I believe if you Google it, it would appear to be right on the corner. It's the same building. So they just, in fact, it reminds me of Berliner records, all the difficulty we have in pinning down Berliner stuff because of the rather haphazard way they went about things. It seems a little bit like that with these talking book records. So remember, we think there's about 27 of these. So I'm just showing you a few examples here. So the Parrot is a very popular one. And I think it was probably that one that got me into it. I really liked the vibrancy of the colors on that. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to get that. And of course, as I said, having bought one, I was hooked. So the other one is Uncle Sam, of course. And one I don't have is the one on the right, the Choir Boy. That is one of the few that I don't have. So if anybody ever comes across the Choir Boy, I'm interested.
So Mike.
Yes.
Tom here. The playing the round part that actually plays the record, that can't be a very large diameter.
It's well, it's a 4-inch record. The band, yeah, the band. You're quite right. The band would be about 1 inch, I would say, from the label to the beginning of the where the recording is set.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, you've got about 1 inch of music on there. I haven't played, believe it or not, I don't play records, so I haven't played them. I can't tell you how long it would last, but I would imagine pretty short. Here's one that, they're so odd the way they go about these things. They make these, frogs and elephants and hippopotamuses, and then all of a sudden Hudson's Bay Company must have said to them, it's our 250th anniversary, so will you produce a talking book record for us? This was a 4-page one, and there's an example of the inside page where you have some text on one side and the record on the other side, and then you flip it over and it would be the same again. So some of them were made in book form, as well as the animals, and the record is bigger. This is a 6-inch record in this particular case. So there is another example of it. Okay, so that's pretty rare. The Hudson's Bay one, I guess they made it for the Bay, and they maybe were selling the talking book records in general, and they just had this special one that would have been for a brief period, I guess. And you don't come across them very often, but I do have one of those. Here's another interesting one. This is called the Holly Kid. The shot on the left with the little guy holding the record. So again, a 4-inch record. This is called the Holly Kid, but on the back of it, it actually promotes this other talking book record, which is the Santa Claus and the Holly Kids, i.e. more of them. So for $1.25, so it says on the back of the Holly Kid, for $1.25, you can buy Santa Claus and the Holly Kids talking book. I think it was a charming talking book entitled Santa Claus and the Holly Kids, price $1.25, beautifully illustrated and with 2 large records. Okay, there's one of the other records. And here's an ad. This ad is from, I think, 1919. And it would have appeared in the Music Trades magazine. Yeah, August 1919, I think this is. So they promoted them quite heavily. So let me tell you a bit about, at this point, let me tell you a bit about the inventor himself. Victor Hugo Emerson was an inventor, an entrepreneur, and a student of Thomas Edison. And he first began to produce recordings as the Talking Book Corporation around 1917. By 1919, Talking Books began producing mostly these children's 4-inch diameter records and mounted on printed cardboard graphics. The front illustrated an animal, a person, or an event, and on the reverse there was a little narrative. So we've seen already that the whole thing, you just put it on the turntable and away it goes. Now, in this, I don't know if it's in this particular ad, I can't quite read it there. But one of the ads in 1919 in Music Trades makes mention that these early discs were marketed to elocutionists of note and merit, so that the child's ear is attuned to perfection of sound from infancy. So that was a bit pretentious, wasn't it? I mean, they were just kids' records, for goodness sake. But anyway, that's what he said. However, before Emerson formed his own company, he was employed by the Columbia Phonograph Company. Columbia was the sole producer and distributor of Little Wonder records. Now, I'm sure we've all come across Little Wonder records. They're everywhere, and many of them have survived. So, and indeed, it was a hugely successful publisher of these very inexpensive acoustic recordings, and they retailed through Sears and Woolworths and Montgomery Ward and stores like that, and mail order like that. Emerson seems to have been involved in all aspects of the business. He recruited and negotiated with the talent, he supervised the master recordings and their manufacture, and was possibly profiting on side deals of his own with other publishers. So he sounded a bit of a character. So there he was. Remember, he worked for Columbia, but in 1919, his talking book records were in direct business conflict with Columbia's Little Wonder records. Now, Emerson tried to control Columbia's access to music publishers and hoped to undercut them and at Columbia's costs and produce a sound arm designed specifically to play these small, low fidelity recordings. However, as you will not be surprised to learn, Columbia and its publishers sued Emerson. He countersued, but the fight was over and he lost everything, the contracts, the recording rights, the profits, and he paid and the royalties that have been paid. So Little Wonder records were a sales phenomenon without the need for advertising, as we have seen because we find them everywhere. To compete, Emerson made a point of publicizing his product by getting talking records mentioned in trade articles and used as design features in retail shop windows. He successfully chipped away at Columbia's market share. And by 1923, Little Wonder Records was out of business. However, the lawsuits, appeals, and countersuits continued to dog Emerson and Talking Book. Additionally, Emerson soon ventured into contracts with ancillary businesses, including Torco Photo, which were discs featuring health and fitness regimens and short recitations by stage and film stars. By 1922, though, financial mismanagement and legal difficulties led Emerson to dissolve his phonograph company. So he then started, he wasn't going to be stopped though, he then started the next year Kiddie Records, but that closed in 1923, the same year. He also developed a recording device for home use, but this never caught on with the public, largely due to the poor sound quality of the recordings, and it was out of business by 1925. So there we have Emerson, a typical entrepreneur of the time, just wanted a slice of everything, probably a good marketing guy by the look of it. So he did very well with them but only for a very short time. As far as I can see, they, as I mentioned, they were produced probably only in New York and were sold. We can see here they were actually sold in New York City and Chicago and Cleveland, as well as in Toronto. But it started in 1918 and it was really done by 1920. So really just 2 years.
Okay.
Sorry.
Mike, could you go back to the previous one, or is that possible?
Yep.
Yeah, there. We're down here nearest the bottom, just above Talking Book Corporation. It says they're indestructible, can play with a record, let the dog chew it or take it to bed. And, you know, I have a couple of those hit of the week records, I think it was, and they were printed way back in the acoustic era, and they really play well. Even though one of them has a couple of creases right across it, I thought, well, this thing will never play. And it plays right across the crease without a skip or a repeat. And this makes me think again about what we were speaking about earlier, is can anybody make records? It doesn't necessarily have to be shellac, because these things, being able to fold it and straighten it out, it can't be a shellac coating. It must be some sort of other coating on there. And yet the ones I have, they're old and well used, and yet they'll still play with a steel needle. They're fine. Anyway.
Sorry, did you say hit of the week?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're made of durium. They were produced at the beginning of the Great Depression. I guess nobody could afford $70 records in 1933. So
yeah.
So they were produced, I think, for about 2 years, and the Depression did that company in as well, apparently. But yeah, you're right. They're made of cardboard and durium, but they're very strong records.
Yeah, so that would be something if somebody was to look into reproducing or making new 78s, that product is, as opposed to a shellac. It seems like it would work. I haven't tried playing one.
These aren't quite the same as those floppy disks. They are actually a little bit rigid. They have. Okay. I'm looking at one here that does have sort of a crease / crack across it. Two of them across it. Whereas another one, I don't know. This is a. Can they see me? Yep. If you can see me here. This is the record, so there's no backing on this one. It's just the record, and all the graphics are on the front of the record. This is a 6-inch record, and it's thinner, but it's as solid as a shellac 78. It's got no flexibility at all. So So it's not quite that, but I take your point, Tom, that it's certainly you don't have to record on shellac. As per the discussion earlier, I remember, I think it was Colin Bray telling us once that it had been impossible to find the exact formula for making shellac records that was used in all the way through that era. They haven't been able to reproduce it perfectly, but as you say, Tom, it doesn't really matter if, well, there's two different objectives. Either you're trying to reproduce a record for what it is physically, or you're trying to reproduce a record for enjoyment, and you could do it on any kind of plastic that would work, I guess, floppy or otherwise. Anyway, here's just a couple of final shots. There was also a set where they put a booklet and some records into a box. And then the four records that would go in the box, rather like the one I showed you here, where it's just the record with a paper backing. And there's a couple more that came in book form, obviously war related then, because this was 1918, 1919. So the Battle of the Marne and the Victory book were very topical. And then finally, on the Kurt Nork auction of a year or two ago, I thought I knew all of the talking book records in this series, but suddenly there popped up the Toledo's 14 Points Rotary Club and the, what is it, the drug company, something, the Michigan Drug Company. So how that fits with children's records, I have no idea, but these records showed up and I was outbid, so they went for a lot of money. And just finally, here's a couple of share certificates. The lucky Mr. Marchie got 100 shares there, and there was another 50 shares there. I saw that one advertised on eBay a while ago. So a short-lived company. Did lots of, so we can take that off, Mark, I think. Yeah, that's it. A short-lived company, but they made lots of these nice records. Elephant. My only problem is how to display them. So if anybody has an idea, you know, imagine I've got 20 something of these. A few of them are in boxes. Quite a lot of them are like this, or like this, or like this, all different shapes and sizes. I don't know how to display them so that I can enjoy them, but there we are. Anyway, I hope that gave you a little bit of an insight into the Emerson talking book records from 1918, 1919. And
I have a display suggestion.
If you find any, let me know. Yes, sorry, go on.
Well, you can do it one of two ways. You can dedicate a wall and hammer nails in that are like picture nails, and you can then hang each individual record on it. The only thing is the balance, and that's very well taken care of by masking tape around the nail. You could also use pegboard and the little hooks and hang them up that way. That's not going to be as nice looking as the nails on your wall. At one time, I had about 40 records on the wall.
Well, thank you. Good suggestion.
Hi, can I say something, Mike?
Just need some wall space. Yes.
I just want to quickly say, did you know that 16 2/3 RPM had talking book records?
Sorry, didn't hear that very well.
16 2/3 RPM had many talking book records from the audio book company.
Well, yeah, there's lots. I think there's, Richard, over the years, there's been lots of things that were called talking book records because it's, you know, it's a pretty obvious name in a way. So yes, I think there were several series of talking book records that had absolutely nothing to do with these records that came after that. And that's partly my problem when I Google them or I see, you know, some sort of advice comes to me about talking book records and I click on it, I find it's got nothing to do with these things that I'm interested in. But thank you for the thought though.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Well,
Excellent.
thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Mike. Looks like I have 2 articles in the works. That would make a great article.
The day is young.
For sure, yeah.
You might have.
What do you
more.
want to do? Because we're getting.
I know, we're
So
going.
take my stick.
Oh, yeah.
We're
Well, I
going
remember. Thank
to, Richard Ellison is going to talk to us about some mailing items. Richard? I guess I'm reading for him.
Oh, you want me to open? it?
Yes, you have to
Okay.
open up his folder.
Okay, just a second.
and- Yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't have it printed?
I do, I have it printed. I have it printed.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Okay, so you just want the
I have it
picture.
printed. So if you just want to open up the Columbia sales letter. There you go. There you go.
That one?
That's it. Open that up. Okay, this is a sales letter. It's from 1905. The Columbia Phonograph Company sent this small envelope, top left, to one of its dealers to let them know about the new records. This is the record catalog as well as monthly record issues of both cylinders and discs. Several notices, including Columbia's famous Uncle Sam drawing, which appears on other Columbia catalogs. I think you can pull that out and show Uncle Sam.
Oh, is it in the file?
Yeah, the little advertising slips.
Am I on the same picture?
Yeah, zoom out. Yeah, if you go down to the
This one?
bottom, yeah, just hold it there. Yeah. kinda.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Several notices, including Columbia's famous Uncle Sam drawing, right, which we see there, which appear on other catalogs. The little advertising slips of paper go from the ridiculous to the sublime. Let me see. Peter Piper wearing a dunce's cap in the bottom left. And then on the right, and then you'll also see the Pope on the right. Yeah, it's an actual recording of Pope Leo the 13th. The record of the Pope carries the fantastic claim that science triumphs over death, because at the time of this release, he'd already died. So if you wanted to have him preach to you from the grave, there you go. There's your record.
Did he make the recording before or after he died?
Well, it would be interesting if he did it during. Then, so that's two references to the Pope today. Now, let's look at the Edison contract. That would be in the next picture. Now, just close that.
Oh, okay, hold on.
Yes, the next file.
This one?
Yeah. Although Edison invented the phonograph in 1877, he did not recognize its entertainment potential for another 20 years later, as we all know. This very early set of contracts is one mailing lays out the rules and regulations for an Edison dealer. So there you go. These contracts were in the early brown wax era of cylinders before gold molded cylinders. The factory production of cylinders and the Model C reproducer. Of interest are the phonograph prices and retail dealers discounts on the right. On the lower right, if you see.
That's lower right.
You can you zoom in on that? Edison was very strict with his dealers. They could not put Edison phonographs on sale. And at least initially, they could only sell Edison products. So we can close that and go on to the next one. In 1929, there's the Edison last Embrol mailing. So,
Oh, hold on. I think we got the wrong one. This is the Embrol mailing, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, by 1929, Edison's favorite invention, had lost out to Emil Berliner's invention, the disc gramophone. And some people actually find this really interesting. He was still making and selling cylinders up until 1929. I mean, it did take him even a long time to make electrical recorded discs, right? And he was slow to that, and he didn't want to give up. Anyway, didn't want to give up on the cylinders. These contracts were, let's see. There's the golden treasury of Edison Blue Emerald Records. Yeah, right there. A chart showing all of Edison's outside horn phonographs, none of which were made after 1913. Now, there is also the very, very last mailing list, and this comes from May 1929.
Where's that?
If you go down in the bottom left.
Oh, yeah, so it's got to be amongst these things.
Yeah. So that's very interesting. I'm sure though, a lot of the cylinders that were in that list cost a small fortune right now because they weren't always available in the stores. Even
No, they were mail order.
Yeah, they were all mail order. So you couldn't even walk into an Edison dealer and just pull these off the shelf. Like you had to order them especially from Edison. So that makes that catalog quite rare as well. So the last thing that Richard wants to show us is the Busy Bee in the box. There you go. Busy Bee phonograph was a modified Columbia Q phonograph. This was one that was actually given away if you had spent so much money at a dealership. There you go, you get a free phonograph. The mandrel is slightly larger than the standard phonograph. So you could only play Busy Bee cylinders on this because other ones just simply wouldn't fit. There's a cardboard brace that hold everything intact. So we can assume that this machine was never played, was never used. The phonograph sits snugly in the box along with a winding key and reproducer, and that's also in its original box. So right there, that's something very interesting. Okay, that's it for Richard. So thank you, Richard, for sending all of these pictures and the explanation. And there you go. I don't think Richard's online with us, is he?
No, I don't think so.
No, okay, so. Now, let's see who else. Norman Brooks. Norman, you're in Nova Scotia. Norman should be standing right beside his Brunswick machine, right?
Can you hear me okay?
There you go.
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
we can. Now, he does have pictures that we can go to full frame with.
Oh, okay, hold
So the very first one is a Brunswick envelope.
on. Let me just change this to.
Now, the Brunswick envelope is first.
That's this, right?
No, that's instructions for unpacking. There's a Brunswick envelope in there.
Okay, hold on.
Well, that's right.
That's right.
Can we show this first?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm just going to show you some ephemera about this particular Brunswick model 122 that you see beside me here. This particular machine sold in Canada for a whopping $410. And later went up as high as $475 when they had the luxury taxes during the war and so on. This model is from around 1920 or so, or a little bit later. This particular is just the envelope that all the materials came in that you're supposed to read before you use your new Brunswick phonograph. So if you want to go on to the next slide, picture.
Cold Spring.
So if you're very careful when you unpack your Brunswick phonograph, tells you how to remove it from the package, etc. and so on. And do not lose or miss any parts because the company may or may not replace them for you. So you've got to be careful when you're unpacking this stuff. These particular pieces of ephemera all came with this phonograph, so they've been with it for the 100 years that the phonograph has existed. So we want to go on to the next slide. And depending on the time of year that you might have bought your Brunswick machine, they warn you, be very careful because if the springs are cold, they could break. So the big caution is on a piece of cardboard. And also do not overwind your machines. Keep your kids away from it, obviously, because they'll tend to overwind it. And that's good news or information even for us today. Overwinding is dangerous, as they point out. Again, you want to go on to the next one. With the Brunswick machines, they're designed to play all records, not only the lateral records, Victor and Columbia, but also Pathés, and also the Edison Diamond Disc. This particular card has a little cellophane packet or pocket there you can see, and that's where the little jewel point was contained for the customer. And you will note there that the customer is supposed to make sure that the diamond or the jewel point is in behind the cellophane before they break it and take it out. Otherwise, they may not replace it if it's missing. You need to make sure it was in there. There's nothing in this one at the particular moment. Also, what's interesting about this, you'll notice there's a big stamp over this, because by the time this particular record player was sold, the new Brunswick records that came out around 1920 were all lateral records. The first Brunswick records were the Hill and Dale style, and that's why they put the stamp over this warning. The Brunswick records now are played with a needle. Don't use this jewel point anymore. So if we go ahead to the next one. And here's the packing material. You'll notice what's very interesting on this one, if you can see it, this machine was dated May 1st, 1926. So this particular machine was sold in the electrical era, probably as part of the clear out. So that $410, you probably got this machine at half price in 1926, which is a good deal for the customer. You notice it tells you what it comes with. And even though the full tone jewel point is crossed out, for some reason, this particular customer did get that jewel point with it. You also got a key, which is stuck in here on the side of the machine as well. And if we go ahead to the next slide, this is a copy or a cover of the actual brochure, the instruction booklet that came with the Brunswick. And this is from Canada. So this machine, although is made in the US, this material is all from Brunswick here in Canada, musical merchandise sales company. And if we go to the next slide, my phone just indicated I'm running out of battery power, so I may have to speed it up here. You may or may not be able to see this. This is one of the original Brunswick records that were Hill and Dale recordings that were issued only in Canada. Again, only in Canada. And this was a Hill and Dale Brunswick before they came out with their lateral records in around 1920 or so. And again, here's the pages from the brochure showing how to play the records on the machine. And again, there's that stamp telling you, please be aware that 1926, any Brunswick record you're likely to encounter is a lateral record. Play it with a steel needle, just like a Brunswick or just like a Victor and Columbia, for example. And if we go to the, I think there's one more slide picture there. Just a little bit of ephemera. We've seen some Brunswick catalogs earlier there when Tom presented his. You'll notice the pictures here of the Brunswick Lady. There's been different versions of this. There's two here, but the original picture of the Brunswick Lady with the original Brunswick machines when they were introduced in 1916, 1917, showed a tone arm, and which was different than the Altona. It was a tone arm that received two reproducers for, one for the lateral records and one for the Hill and Dale. And the very original Brunswick Lady was holding one of the reproducers in her hand. And you can see it in the picture, not in these, but in the original picture, you can see her holding that. Then later, when they came out with the Altona, you can see her listening to it there with a Hill and Dale recording as the reproducer is turned. And then finally, once Brunswick came out with their own records, you can see the Altona there in the middle the November 1921 picture, the Altona is turned to play the lateral records. It's almost like a cartoon drawing. They erased out the picture of the Altona and put in this other version playing the lateral record. So again, you'll see the Brunswick Lady in 3 different iterations at that particular point. Again, that's about all I have for those. Again, I'm sort of rushing along here just because I don't want to run out of battery power here at the moment. So that's it.
Oh, great. Thank you,
Okay,
Norman. I
very
thought
good.
that was great. That was very interesting. Yeah, it's great to see how things have still survived, you know, I mean, with, they were supposed to be just temporary items to be disposed of as soon as you set up your gramophone and just throw it all in the garbage, you know, but even the sales receipts.
It all sounded a bit daunting though, didn't it? Don't do this, make sure you do that, unpack it. I mean, it's like an IKEA instruction.
Have you ever tried to use an Altona arm?
No.
Yeah, I've screwed mine up many
Yeah.
times. You know, you pull it out, you're supposed to flip the head around and get the weight right. Just to, anyway, yeah. Thank you for the instructions. I needed that. So last up, we have Mike Pacheco, and he has some very interesting.
We'll get through this fast.
Okay, all right.
I had given some slides to show.
Oh, yeah, hold on.
While Mark's finding it, I'm going to cover a topic called hip pocket records. And I think I brought one in several years ago. Here's one of the ads for it. So hip pocket records were from the 1960s. And if you think of the 60s, it was really an age of miniaturization. People were walking around with portable transistor radios. I mean, really cool, right? Battery operated. And so Philco Ford, which was Philco got bought by Ford Motor Company, and they became the electronics division for Ford Motor. So they came out with this great idea. Let's make a miniature record player, a miniature system, so that kids can carry around a whole bunch of records in their purse or pocket. And they called them hip pocket records. The records were 45 RPM. They had hits on both sides. And they're sort of like the Evatone floppy disks that were often offered in magazines at the time. You'd buy, say, Mad Magazine or something like that, and there was a record in there. So they're quite small. They were about 4 inches in diameter, and they came with a color envelope. The records were only sold in Ford dealerships and Woolco stores, so it's kind of limited. The price was 69 cents, which in 1967, when they were introduced, was about the equivalent price of a regular 45. The advantage was supposed to be they're really sort of like greatest hits. So the recordings were usually a year or two old, and they coupled 2 hits together to make it more saleable. So I brought in some actual ads that were used for hip pocket records. And this one too, you can see they're aiming the youth market, and they're showing how you can buy these special earrings as a woman, and then you can snap your hip pocket records into the earrings and walk around with little records on your ears. They're that portable. There were also specific hip pocket record players made, and I've got a picture of one I've got at home. They're really quite tiny. So this is another ad for hip pocket records, and it's I've actually seen a color version of this recently, which looks quite good. But the whole point is that you can put a bunch of these records in your pocket. They made about 41 releases, and they lasted up until around 1969, and they just weren't selling. And one of the main drawbacks of them was you couldn't play them on an automatic record player. It had to be a portable manual record player because the label and the final grooves are so close to the spindle that an automatic would just shut off partway through. Let's see if there's anything else here. They were eventually wiped out by 8-track tapes and cassette tapes, which were much more portable and could hold a lot more information. And on the next picture, I've got, so this is an actual hip pocket record player. It only plays 45s. It's like a little transistor radio inside, uses 2C batteries. And my wife's actually holding it in her hand to give you an idea of just how small this thing is. And there's a record. And if you wonder what a hip pocket record looks like, I had one in my pocket. So they always had a color sort of folder for it. It's just one-sided. And this one's Tommy James and the Shondells. It's actually the first issue. And then here's the actual records themselves.
It's one of the doors, right?
There is one of the doors. It's actually quite common to find. And there are all kinds of artists, the McCoys, Western Union, Otis Redding, Neil Diamond. I'm going off the top of my head here, a lot of hit artists of the 60s. So they had good material, but unfortunately the format itself just wasn't that great and got quickly wiped out. But I had these ads for Hip Pocket Records, and I thought it would go in well with what we're dealing with today. And again, introduce you to the format itself. And Mark, maybe someday I'll do an article about Hip Pocket Records for you.
All right, so now we're looking at January.
And that's it for my presentation. And yes, so I want to thank everybody who contributed to today's meeting, and all of you there in the room and online too, who asked questions and made it interactive. That's what we like to see. It isn't just one person standing up here talking, it's getting ideas, flowing things back and forth and getting input and sharing it. And I want to say special thanks to Steve. I think he did a great job pulling all this together. Since the last meeting, we've been emailing back and forth, but
we got it done.
We did, yeah. Thank you, everybody. We're going to take probably maybe a 10-minute break or so. 10 minutes. 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And so we'll have a little social here. And for people on Zoom, just hold on. And what I think we're going to try to show some of the auction items too. Yes, so
That's, yeah.
is that hard to do?
We can't walk with the camera.
We can't walk a camera around.
You can log in, if you have a phone, we can log in.
I didn't bring my phone. I left it on.
I might be able to do that.
Okay.
I might be able to log in.
Let's, for those of you on Zoom, one comment we got last time was, could we get a showing of what's on the auction table? So we're going to try to do that. I mean, it's going to be quick. There's boxes of cylinders here. There's some boxes of 78s. We can't go through all those, but you'll get an idea of a lot of the material that's here. And then when it does come up for auction, Mike will give a very detailed description of it as it does.
And whether it's shippable.
How many
Whether or
items you
not
got?
it's shippable or not.
How many items you got today?
Oh, yeah.
25?
Well, I thought maybe
Oh, yeah.
35, 40.
30 plus, yeah.
Yeah.
25,
Okay.
huh?
And there's no 16 RPM records, Rich.
All right.
Okay.
But if there was, I would certainly tell you about it.
Well, I'll just keep putting it on the chat thing here, letting everyone know I'm looking for.
Okay. So thanks, everybody. We're going to take a quick break.